we are in the third part of this video where this is the coolest part, where this talks about holograms and the role of holograms in having out-of-body experiences, the ability to see the future, the past, and remote viewing. Again, remember, this is the United States Army's militarization, practicality study of the ability to use psychic power to give the Army a military advantage. And one of the things that you'll see, I really do urge you to watch this movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, starring George Clooney, because they talk about the Russians actually having a military unit that does this kind of thing, star bursting and out-of-body experiences and remote viewing, all of which has been tested and proved to the satisfaction of military intelligence. And so let's talk about the hologram. I want to explain it in the best way that I can, because this gentleman does his best to do it, and he's got a hard job ahead of him. So let me explain what a hologram is. Let's say that you have a tank of very, very still water, okay? I drop a pebble, wait, listen, in one remote part of the tank. Ripples come out from that tank, don't they? Waves, ripples, you've seen them. Okay, so I'm sitting here, and then bang, as soon as it drops and then the ripples start to form, I freeze the entire tank in a heartbeat, in a flash. And I cut away out all the ice until there's only this little tiny piece of that big tank, and guess what? I can tell you where that pebble dropped, how far away, and how far down into the tank it dropped. How do I know that? Because the shape of the arc, if it's coming at me, it's going to look like that, and the width of the waves. If it was from far away, then those waves will be distant apart and have a large, flatter arc. I hope you can understand that. So when we drop the pebble, a wave comes at us, we can take the tiniest little part of that thing, we can sense the arc of that vibrational pattern, we can sense the distance from the event happening, and we can do what's called a hologram. Hologram is actually the ability to take something and to expand its dimensional capability. So in other words, we can say from that little tiny part of the sample area we call very low resolution, we can fill in the blanks. It's just like if you had a picture of maybe 1/4 of your face, but you knew that person's face. Maybe it was Abraham Lincoln, and then you could just kind of see the rest of it through the hologram. Here's another example of a hologram that you may not know. Because this is going to talk about the third, fourth, fifth dimensions later in the document. But one interesting thing about a hologram is that you're looking at holograms every day. In fact, you're looking at one right now, because you are looking at a two-dimensional physical plane. But you're looking at me, and you can see behind me there's an elevator, there's a base, there's a refrigerator. There's really wonderful gift I got from Jimmy Page, a signed copy of their album, The Song Remains the Same, and he signed it, The Fong Remains the Same. You can see that all behind me, and you can infer that those things are behind me because this is a hologram. You are actually able to see 3 dimensions when you're really looking at 2. So the flat surface is a hologram. What are the 2 and 3 dimensions? Well, 2 dimensions is length, second dimension is height, and then the third dimension is depth. Okay, so in what you're looking at right now, this is a hologram. A hologram basically allows you to infer from the information that you're already seeing what exists that you can't see. Does that make sense? So that's a hologram. When we look at a Canadian currency, there's a hologram on it. When you look at a credit card, there's a hologram on it, and you can turn the Visa and you can see like a dove or whatever, 3-dimensional. You're looking at a 2-dimensional thing and you're able to see 3 dimensions. That's a hologram. So what happens in hologram viewing is when you are able to see holograms, and what is a hologram? But it is a disturbance of stillness. So For example, in a very, very still tank, somebody drops the pebble, the waves come at me, we can see by any portion of that tank how far away that pebble was, where it was in the tank, and a lot of things about it. In fact, if we're good enough, we can actually see what the pebble looked like. And you go, how can that happen? Well, I'll tell you how that can happen. A bat doesn't have the luxury of eyes that work. What it does is it sends out sonar. Same thing with dolphins. They send out a beep, and they wait for that echo to come back. And there's so much information in that echo, a hologram, that they can actually see the shape and the design, the three-dimensionality of whatever it is, the stalagmites in a cave, by sending out a sound and hearing what comes back. That in itself is a hologram. So assuming that you know how to perceive a hologram, then you can, of course, see if the thing that dropped into the river was this, then you'd be able to see the crags and everything like that. Now, let me give you another interesting thing about the hologram. You realize that that pebble, by the time it reached you, was something that, for you, it's past. It happened, but the information that got to you is in the past, according to that pebble. But guess what it is to you? It's in the future, according to you. Because by that time that wave hits you, then you'll know that there was a pebble out there, right? So when it talks about the fifth dimension and being able to sense the continuity of time, that in itself is a hologram. So, for example, I'm sitting here and there's all these different things that are happening and they create a ripple. Like when I clap, that goes out to the universe. Ripples. Guess what? It also sends ripples coming back. And when you hit something, those ripples continue to go out, but they also, you can see them as they echo out. And that is called the Akashic Records. Anything that has ever happened on the earth, the universe, winds up being able for you to see it. I explain it to my children. I call it the Google universe. In fact, so many things in technology mimic the universal light energy that we can perceive. Things like saying, we uploaded the file to the cloud. This isn't a cloud. This is something that sits in a bunker underground in a nuclear silo in Santa Fe or something like that. But they call it the cloud to kind of, I guess maybe in a way, confuse us to our ability to access the Akashic Records. Because anything that ever happened at any point in time, not only this dimension, but in other parallel dimensions, goes up into the universe, but is accessible by all, because any vibrational energy is a disturbance of the calm flatness, the infinite, unmeasurable, no edges to it, stillness of the universe. And that is how we're able to use holograms to be able to look into the future, look outside of our bodies, travel in space and time. So it'll come clear later as you go into this video series a little bit more. Chapter 13, the part encodes the whole. They're talking about holograms. So it says, of a further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be this resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. Like I told you, when you take any little shard of this shattered still pond, you can still see that there was a wave, the shape of the wave, the direction of the wave. Was it coming at us, or were we the one that sent the wave out? And how far away was that when that happened? All of that stuff is part of the hologram. And if we can have access to this little part of the hologram, then we can see the entire universe, because we're able to access any of those waves. Now, this is really, really hard for us to understand if we rely on our 5 dimensions. So let's just put that all away. Let's just suspend our left brain logical thought, and let me take you on a little tiny adventure.